Hi class, so today we are going to talk about simplifying algebraic expressions. Make sure that on your notes you write the correct date in the top right corner and that you write your learning target right underneath this line. It should say learning target. I can combine like terms in algebraic expressions. So go ahead and take a minute, pause the video, and go ahead and write that. Now, today you are going to need a yellow highlighter and a green highlighter. If you don't have those two colors, that's okay, but I would prefer a yellow and a green so you can follow along with my notes. So go ahead and pause the video and go get a yellow and a green highlighter along with your pencil to take your notes. All right, so let's begin. Go ahead and look at these pictures right here. I have 4 blue stars and 3 red circles. Can I say that I have 7 stars? No. Can I say that I have 7 circles? No. This is because I specifically have 1, 2, 3, 4 blue stars and 1, 2, 3 circles. Does that make sense? It should seem pretty easy to you. But what if instead of these stars, I said that I had 4 X's and I had 3 Y's? Well, that's the same as 4 stars and 3 circles, but this time instead of stars and circles, I'm using variables. I'm using X and Y. Does that change it at all? Could I say that I have 7 Y's or 7 X's? No, I can't because they're not the same thing. Just like the stars and the circles are not the same thing, X's and Y's are not the same thing. I cannot combine them into one big group. So what does that mean for us? Anytime that you have X's and Y's or any number by themselves, you can only combine them with things that look just like them. So let's use our star example. If I have this star and I add another star to it, let's put it over here. And then I have a circle, and this time let's add 2 circles to our mix. So I've got another circle and another circle. Okay, so now what would it look like? I have 4 stars plus 3 circles plus another star and 2 circles. How could I combine those so I can have one group of stars and circles instead of having 4 separate groups? One group here, one group here, one group here, and one group here. Well, I would combine my stars and my circles. I'm going to get rid of this for a minute. I would take this star and I would put it over here. And I'd put these circles and I'd put them here. Now how many of each do I have? Well, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 circles. So I have 5 stars plus 5 circles. Notice that I can only combine like terms or things that are similar. I can't combine stars with circles. I can only combine stars with stars. And I can't combine circles with stars. I can only combine circles with circles. So now let's look at what that looks like if we're looking at numbers. So let's say I have 4 X's plus 3 Y's plus, let's do one more X and then plus, plus 2 more Y's. How can I simplify all of this? Look, I have got 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of numbers, but I only have 1, 2 variables. I only have an X and a Y. That means I can simplify it. I can squish it all together to make it one term. So how would I do that? Well, I look for things that are the same. Here's an X, a 4X, and here's an X. So how many X's do I have all together if I have 4 X's here and 1 X here? I'll give you a clue, it's the same as the stars. I would have 5 X's total, and all of my symbols are still adding, so I'm going to keep it as an addition sign. And then how many Y's do I have altogether? I have 3 Y's here, and I have 2 Y's here. That means I have altogether, I have 5 Y's. Now this looks a lot better than this because I only have 2 groups of numbers to work with now instead of the 4 groups of numbers I had up here. Go ahead and take a minute to think about that, and we can move on to the next problem in just a second. So some of you might be wondering why I was able to combine the 4x and the x and the 3y and the 2y. Well, the reason is because of like terms. Now you'll need to write this definition down on your paper. Like terms are terms that contain the same variables, such as 2n and 4n, they both have the same variables, or 4y, 4y and 8y, those have the same variables, and even 8xyz and 7xyz. Those all have the same variables right here. See the n and the n, those two have the same variables as the 2n and the 4n. Here's 4y and 8y, and here's 8xyz and 7xyz. They all have the same variables. Another term that you'll need to know and write down on your notes is a constant. A constant is any number or any term without a variable. Go ahead and think in your brain for just a second about a constant, an example of a constant, any number without a variable. You could have said 5, you could have said 7, you could have said 100. All of these numbers don't have any letters next to them, any variables next to them. So these are just constants. They're just constant numbers. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our first example. Example number 1 is 4x plus 3 plus 2x plus 8 plus 6y. Now this looks like a lot of information, but it's not. We can break it down. So this is where your highlighters come in handy. Go ahead and change any term that you see with an X in it to green. So go ahead and do that now. I'll go ahead and do it with you. Highlight any term that you see and change it to green for the X's. So that one would be the 4x and the 2x. Now go ahead and use your yellow highlighter and highlight any other variables that you see that end in a y, that have a y in them. A y only. And we're going to do those in yellow. I'm going to do a dark yellow. There you go. And then what's left are the numbers that you just wrote in pencil on your paper. And those can just be on their own, or if you really want to, you can get a third highlighter and highlight them a different color. I'm going to leave mine black. So the reason I had you color code these is because now it's really easy to see which terms we can combine. We can combine green and green, black and black, and yellow and yellow. So let's do green and green first. Get my pen to say green. We've got 4x. Oops, that's not green. We have 4x. That's still not green. Why is this not green? Okay, now it's green. So I have 4x plus 2x because those both have x's in them and only x's. These are called like terms, and anytime they're in an equation, we can add them together. So 4x and 2x. Now, our next set of like terms can be our yellow friends plus 6y. And do you see any other y's or any other like terms with a 6y in this equation? The answer is no, we don't have any other y's, and that's okay. Sometimes you won't have other like terms. Then our next one are our black numbers, or the ones you wrote in pencil, which is a 3 and an 8. So here we're going to do 3 plus 8. All right, now we have them all grouped on how we can combine them with our like terms. So our next line, we're going to look at this 4x plus 2x. Let's see if green works this time. 4x plus 2x is 6x. It didn't work. 4x plus 2x is 6x. So if you have 4 x's and then you add 2 more x's to them, you get 6 x's total. Then we're going to add our next term, which is our yellow. And we have 6y, but we don't have anything to add to 6y, so we're just going to keep it as 6y. And then our next set of like terms are our constants, numbers without variables, 3 plus 8. And 3 plus 8 is 11. So we're going to do plus 11. And there we go. This right here is the simplified version of this first line up here. So we just combined everything to make it into one shorter problem that's a little bit easier to look at and less scary than this one. Okay, and now here's example number 2. And example number 2, we do the same exact way as we do example number 1. We're going to start and look for any like terms that are in this problem. So I see one. I see here's a negative 3x. We can go ahead and change that to green. And then here's another 8x, and they both have x's, so that's perfect. We can just keep them as like terms. And then now we're looking for our next set of like terms. We don't have any other variables, so our next thing we need to look at or look for are our constants. And I see one right here. Here's a negative 5. Let's change that to yellow. And here's a 6, a positive 6. We can change that to yellow also. Okay, so now all we need to do on our next line is combine our like terms. So our first like term is in green. That's negative 3x. I'll change it to green in just a minute. And then look at the sign right in front of the 8x. What is this sign right here? That's an addition sign. So we keep that addition sign, plus 8x. Let me change that to green. All right, so there's our first one. And then we're going to keep an addition sign because we're putting all of these together, and all together means add. And then let's look at this next one. We've got a negative 5 and a positive 6. Don't worry about the negative. Let's just keep it in there. And that means we need to combine the negative 5 with a positive 6, just like that. Now let's look at our green terms. Now we know we put our like terms next to each other. Now we can combine them. So our green terms, what's a negative 3x plus a positive 8x? If you have negative 3 and you add it to positive 8, you're going to get a positive 5. Let's see if I can get green. You'll get a 5x. And now we simplified these guys, so we can just keep our plus sign right there. And then we have a negative 5 plus 6 for our yellow terms. Well, if you have a negative 5 and you add 6 to it, do you know what you get? Write it in if you know. You get a positive 1. 5x plus 1 is our next line. Can we simplify that anymore? The answer is no, you cannot, because 5x is one type of term and 1 is a constant. It's a different type of term. And we can't combine any terms that don't have the same endings. So what you need to remember for your homework and your quiz is that these terms don't need to end in X and Y. They could end in any letter at all. They can end in A, they can end in Z, they can end in T, they could even be stars and circles. As long as you only combine like terms, you'll be totally fine on your quiz. Speaking of your quiz, here it is. Go ahead and copy down these answers or these problems onto a separate piece of paper and solve them. These are due the next time you see me during class. Make sure that you show your work and you show all of your steps just like I was just doing on the notes. Always remember that if you have any questions, you can sign up for tutoring on our Academy's website. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have in class as well. And one last thing before the video is over, make sure that you classify yourself if you're red, yellow, or green. We've done this before, but in case you forgot, red is I'm lost on this concept and I totally need help. Or yellow is I think I understand, but I know I need some practice. And green is this is way too easy and I'm ready for a challenge. Make sure you circle one so I know where you are at when you come to class tomorrow. And if you have any other questions, feel free to email me. Have a good night and make sure you pause the video to finish this quiz.